Today, I want to talk about something that people are curious about, but almost nobody wants to ask publicly. And that is, can you get into federal contracting if you have a felony on your record? Now, let me get this out of the way. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm giving you straight information, straight understanding, and straight clarity based on what the rules actually say and what the federal government actually cares about. And here's the honest truth: a personal felony conviction does not automatically prevent you from getting into federal contracting. Most people don't know that. A lot of people assume they're disqualified for life. They're not. Let me explain how this really works. There's a huge difference, and the government is very clear about this, between a corporation and the individual owners of that corporation. The government contracts with the entity and the business, not the individual. And that's where a lot of confusion comes from. People hear no felonies and think that applies to themselves personally. It doesn't work like that. In fact, there was a federal ruling back in 2016 that laid this out very clearly. And that ruling basically said federal agencies cannot contract with corporations that have unpaid federal tax liabilities or corporate felony convictions without considering suspension or debarment. Notice what that says: corporate felony convictions, not personal ones. That means if your company has been convicted of a felony, and that's within the last 24 months, then you have to disclose that during the bidding process. And then the procurement official has to decide whether to move forward, suspend, or debar. But if you personally have a felony and your company doesn't, the rule does not automatically bar your business from federal work. Now, does that mean there aren't challenges? No. You may still face some obstacles. For example, some federal jobs require access to government facilities. That could mean background checks. That could mean certain federal buildings might deny physical access depending on what's on your record. And some federal contracts, especially ones involving security, weapons, IT systems, or sensitive areas, require security clearances. In those cases, your personal history could absolutely come into play. But most construction contracts, most facility maintenance, most janitorial, landscaping, roofing, painting, mechanical, electrical, civil work, those don't require a clearance. And that's where most of you listening operate. These are everyday federal construction contracts, and the government cannot and does not disqualify a company simply because the owner made a mistake earlier in life. Here's the part most people forget: the government cares about performance. They care about whether you show up on time. They care about whether you finish the job, follow FAR, follow safety rules, and communicate correctly. They care about risk. And your past does not determine your future risk unless your company itself has been convicted of a felony in the last 2 years. That's the actual rule. Now, let me talk to the people who are hesitating because they're embarrassed or afraid to ask this question. You'd be surprised how many people in federal contracting have a past. You'd be surprised how many business owners turn their life around. And that's the beautiful thing about federal work. Once you form a legal entity, that entity stands on its own. The government is not judging you as a person. They're judging whether your company can deliver. And if you can deliver, they don't care what mistakes you made 10, 15, or 20 years ago. This world is full of second chances, but you have to give yourself one. If you're listening to this and you've been holding yourself back because you think you're disqualified, I'm telling you right now, you are not disqualified. You still have opportunity, and you can absolutely build a business inside the federal marketplace. If your situation is complicated, talk to an attorney. But if you're just sitting on the sidelines thinking you can't get into federal work because of something in your past, that's simply not true, and you might be throwing away the biggest opportunity of your life. So if you want help understanding how this works, how to submit bids the right way, how to structure your business, how to create systems that take you from confusion to competence, schedule a Zoom with me. Go to GCExperts.com/Zoom. I'll see you in the next one.